Blimey. This is one hell of a jam jar you got here.
Warning. The House of Mystery contains demons, angels, elementals, magicians, wizards, apparitions, adult language, and discussions. If you're easily offended, do not enter the House of Mystery.
All right, then. On with the show.
All right, hello, welcome everyone to the House of Mystery, the John Constantine and Friends podcast. Hello, I am Michael Flores, and of course, with me is the bisexual butler and ghost, a ghost bisexual, and vice versa.
Am I a ghost because you don't want me to touch things?
Yeah, I don't trust you, Dave.
You don't trust me now?
Hello, Dave. How are you?
How's it going, everyone?
All right. So today we are here to discuss something pretty fucking great. We're going to be breaking down the new issue of John Constantine Hellblazer, issue number 10, titled The Wake Up Call.
God, dude, I was not expecting where they were going in this issue. Everything that I had that I was expecting got thrown out the window because of this issue.
Don't you love that?
I love it.
I love when they can trick us.
Because it
pull
shows
that rug out from underneath us. We don't need to know what's happening. Subvert our expectations.
Exactly. Especially in comics nowadays, because I appreciate when a writer does that, because it shows me that he's not being predictable.
Wait a second. So what you're saying is you appreciate a writer that knows how to write?
Exactly. And I hate to say it.
You expect someone to do their job the right way?
Yeah. And unfortunately, nowadays, I don't see very many good writers.
No.
I really don't.
Yeah, you're right. And this episode was written by Simon Spurrier, this issue was written by Simon Spurrier with art by Matthias Bergara, who just knocked it out the fucking park again.
Bergara has become like my favorite artist, one of my top 5 favorite artists right now today.
Yeah.
And it's thanks to this issue.
Yeah. This title, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. The synopsis, the specter of his older self, and the terrible bargain he made to get another chance at life has been playing a cat and mouse game with John Constantine for months. Now, but the game is over, and it's time to get down to business. Namely, the business of destroying absolutely everything that made that second lease on life worth living. All right, so the wake-up call. We are just about at the end of the road here, with just 2 issues left.
Yep.
Si Spurrier springboards the readers right into the thick of it. He doesn't waste a single page. All of the 22 to 23 pages was expertly used. And that's something that I drone on and on about when we talk about comic books. You're given 20 pages. It's not a lot. So you have to really work. And something Spurrier always does, issue after issue, is deliver a wonderful narrative with twists and turns, reveals, awesome character arcs, some closure. And he does this with 22 pages, Dave.
Oh, dude. This is what has been missing, in my opinion, what old Constantine Hellblazer fans have been rallying for.
Mm-hmm.
This is what they've been missing out. That's what's missing in today's Hellblazer. You know, that old school fans have been just salivating about. They want this type of storytelling.
Well, we need those intimate portraits painted. We need to understand this character. We need to get inside his head. John Constantine. John Constantine is more than just a superficial face. Oh, it's John Constantine. He's going to smoke and sell someone out, and then he's going to regret it later. No, there is so much more to this character. And you're right. This is what the fans have been wanting. We want those intimate portraits. We want to understand what's going on. And we finally got some answers here. So this better version of you has, in fact, been somewhat revealed to us as we now understand what Old Man Constantine wants with John's soul and why he wants him to be a better version of you. That's something I know you've been harping on since the beginning. Like, well, what's this mean? When are we going to get back to it? Well, here you go,
Here
Dave.
we go.
Take it and shove it down your ear holes.
And I like the fact that when you get to what Old Man Constantine is, I feel is what he's alluding to, what will make a better Constantine.
Mm-hmm.
It actually makes sense. You understand where the Old Man Constantine's coming from, because we all know this character's background. We know his history. We know because we've read so many stories of John Constantine at this point. If you're a hardcore fan, you kind of look at Old Man Constantine and his reasoning and say, I think he's right.
Well, I mean, all of it makes sense. One thing, people say John Constantine is a liar. He's not a liar. It's called misdirection, right?
He's a manipulator.
He manipulates. There you go. And even Old Man Constantine, for the most part, is telling the truth. He's needs the soul to be void of guilt, untarnished. That's why he wants him to be the better version.
Yes.
Be a better version of you so that your soul remains clean, so that at the end of my life, I can continue to be happy, fun and fancy free, void of guilt. Why would I want a soul that's tarnished?
And when you think about it, me and you have talked about it. The one strength John has is his overall self-loathing, because that's what makes him human. He feels the repercussions of his decisions, but he still lives with it. Well, he moves on from it.
I believe we talked about it during our very first discussion on Sandman Universe. Sandman Universe presents Hellblazer, the one-shot that got this entire story rolling. When Constantine realized that there was something odd and different about this older version of himself, and then he realized this dude is happy.
Yeah.
This guy is content. Is that what it feels like to possibly not have a soul? So it posed even philosophical questions way back then, and now we come full circle. And we understand now the agenda of Old Man Constantine, at least some of what he has planned. I have a feeling that this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's something bigger. We have two more issues.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some more reveals, I'm sure. And for us to understand just how intimate or personal this story is for Constantine, Spurrier takes us on an adventure into a dreamscape where we learn a lot in the most careful, and I stress, delicate way. Because if a heavy-handed writer would have done this, it would have come off so poor.
Oh, absolutely.
Because this is dangerous territory. When you're trying to get into the mind of a character and you're trying to get people to talk, when you sit down to write a scene for anything, whether it be a movie script or a book or a comic book, you have to be very careful how you want ideas to be fleshed out.
Yeah.
Because many times you get two characters that just decide to sit down and they talk. And they talk in a way that doesn't feel organic, and it's just designed to tell the readers now, hey, well, it's time for me to tell you what's going on. And yet we did not get that with this issue. We get a writer here, Spurrier, that avoids the ham-fisted elements, because there are a lot of writers that would in fact ham-fist the details. Spurrier really plots out the script in such a way we completely get it. We understand the gravitas of the situation and what it means, while also giving us a clever classic Constantine moments, like when John took Old Man Constantine into the safe place room where inmates share their deeper thoughts, reminding us of how cunning Constantine is by having him take control of the dream, but also it's an excellent way to organically reveal important information about the narrative without falling into those cliche monologue moments or the tired bouts of exposition that we get so much in books today.
Yeah. Because and that moment in the comic when John does that, it's almost, I appreciate the fact that you think John wins, but in actuality, this is what Old Man Constantine wanted. because while John thinks he's safe, old man Constantine says, no, turn around. And then you begin to realize, and you understand that now, for me, I have a full understanding that this whole series isn't just simple magic. It's about the magic of the person, the magic is inside the person using the magic. Basically, because like if you think about it, since issue 1, what is the one thing we've always noticed about the monsters being summoned or the magic being used? It's the person using it. The hobo, he's the one who summoned the angels. The fisherman, he's the one who summoned the mermaid. Why? Because they're all inner thoughts. They're all inner dreams of that person. Same thing with the racist ghost. That was an inner thought of that one old lady. Here, John gets taken. The monster is John himself, where he literally is forced to see the real darkness that's in his brain, looking at it through his dreams, where he thinks he's safe. And old man Constantine basically makes him turn around at that point, and everything that Constantine is looking at straight ahead that looks like rainbows and unicorns and everything pleasant, but everything behind him is all the dead people that he's left behind.
Right.
Dude, that scene gave me chills because I'm like going, Spurrier understood at that point, Spurrier proved to me he understands the history of Constantine.
Yeah,
because those are all those victims of his past.
But it's not about just stating that, and that's my appreciation that I was trying to explain about the writing process that Spurrier goes through. Because how do you do those things? Those things aren't tangible elements. They're things that can only be shared to you by saying it.
By saying it.
And so many writers today, that's what they do. They would say, well, you do a lot of bad things. I know you regret things and you're remorseful and I know you can't shake the guilt. And we would get these tired moments between characters. That's what we would get with a lot of writers. We would get these tired moments of where they're spelling it out. But instead, you're taken into this dream world where there's an excuse to see things. There's an excuse to make the intangible tangible, and it gives reasons for characters to talk. For example, we would never have learned openly why old man Constantine is going after John's soul to begin with. Why does he want this? Well, if he were to just decide to spell it out to John, it would feel very weak. But instead, because John is in this so-called safe place, old man Constantine spills the beans before he catches it, and that clues the reader into what's actually happening in the story, that there's a bigger agenda at play here having to do with pride, connecting it to the soul. So there's just a whole lot of clever writing gimmicks being used. We learn a small part of old man Constantine's bigger plan, which was key at this point. We're closing in at the end of the story arc, so we needed to get these moments, which of course has something to do with wanting to trigger, I believe the exact words were, trigger escalating manifestations of pride. And then he stopped when he realized that he was being tricked into talking.
Yep.
So I'm sure we'll find out exactly what that means in future issues. We also were given a sad reminder of what happens whenever people get too close to John. As you were bringing us to a moment ago. And rather than giving us some sad attempt at reiterating John's characterizations via, a schlocky bit of exposition about guilt, Spurrier crafts the narrative to encompass that idea in a way that raises the stakes and threatens John's second chance. The idea that old man Constantine wants to remove John's friends because he is aware of what happens when people get close. They will die. And he doesn't want to contaminate John's soul any further with a guilty heart. His real enemy is that fucking guilty heart.
The guilty heart.
It's a strong statement, and this is how you show that. That's how you paint these moments for a character. You find clever metaphors. You find writing gimmicks to really flesh out those ideas. Okay, so old man Constantine is pride. He's John at the end of a long and happy life, and he wants his soul unblemished. I think we could say that is, as of right now, that's our complete understanding of Old Man Constantine, correct?
Yes, that is what we can understand now. He's not some demon taking John's form. It's his pride. And dude, I was at the very beginning of this, I kept thinking about who the hell is Old Man Constantine? And when you get to this point, I'm like going, I was not expecting this.
Yeah, and I don't know if I want anything else. I mean, I love the whole your own worst enemy gimmicks.
Yes.
I love that. And we know that John Constantine is his own worst enemy. We know this. So the fact that they exemplified that by making the very villain of this story arc, these opening, 12 issues, they're making the actual antagonist of the storyline John himself. And I know we've done that a few times here and there throughout the Vertical run, but not quite like this. Because it's all internal. Because yes, we have the tangible foe, right? But the tangible foe's weapon of choice is John's own character.
It's John's own character.
How the fuck do you come up with that? I mean, that's brilliant.
It is. It's so different, and you would. I venture to say that basically, I have never seen this type of storytelling in comics the last 8 years. I haven't seen it. I have not seen someone tackle a character breakdown, a character analysis like this.
Oh man. Let's see here. There's a lot of indie comic books out there that do pretty great work,
but when it comes to kind of major characters,
from mainstream, because this is mainstream. We're dealing with, DC Black Label. I would call this mainstream.
Yeah.
From a mainstream angle or aspect, no. I don't. And I have not seen anything quite this nuanced in a very long time. In fact, I said this off air, Dave. I feel like the closest we get in terms of a character study is Spurrier's work on Dr. Aphra.
Yeah. Because it's that nuance. It's that personal.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a lot of fans that are probably listening to us and saying, "Oh, what about the stories about Batman and Spider-Man the last couple of years?" Yeah, those have been really quote unquote personal towards those characters, but not altering like this. This is altering. This is actually taking the character's mythos and taking it to the next step, because it's something that me and you discussed.
You're recontextualizing what makes John tick and making it work for a new story.
Exactly. And if they ever did that with Batman wouldn't be constantly rebooting himself every freaking 10 years, 5 years at this point, where it's basically all he is a broken person. And me and you have discussed that off the air, how like Batman is just a broken character time and time again. They don't want to change him. Spider-Man, same thing. They make movements that they show, oh, we're going to finally change them.
Yeah.
But then they just go, reboot, he's back to being a teenager.
Well, the only thing I'll say about that is that there's a lot of expectations that comes with those characters. Batman is a huge character. Spider-Man, huge character, right?
Yeah.
So there's certain expectations that they can't veer away from, and it's taken. And also, you're taking a major risk if you decide to flip the mythos on its head. I mean, Snyder's metal is probably the most
closest,
not
as nuanced as this.
Oh, not even close. And honestly, I just don't. I don't think this would work for those mainstream characters. Let's just be honest. Most readers of comic books, and this is not me being insulting, it's the facts. There are a lot of us, and I include myself, that are looking for these types of titles. But from a mainstream perspective, they're looking for the Batmans. They're looking for the Supermans. They're looking for the Trinities. They're looking for something more simple, because that's their taste. And I'm not saying that's a bad taste. I'm not saying they have bad taste. I'm just saying there's a reason why blockbuster films do as well as they do, and indie films are smaller. The audiences aren't as drawn to those, the mainstream.
Yes.
And Spurrier is writing something that feels more like an indie series.
It does, doesn't it?
And It's the reason why it's probably not selling, Dave, and why it's been canceled. I feel like this series is a victim to its own greatness. That sounds awful because I know there are a lot of people out there that like to say, well, if it's good, it will sell. But that's not true.
That's not true.
How many fantastic art films are there out there that don't register a blip at the box office?
And the only way you find out about them is by word of mouth.
Yeah, you can't judge someone's, or I should say a story's value, whether it be a comic book or a film, based on its monetary gains. That would be silly. So this series just continues to just baffle me in a good way because it stuns me every time I crack open an issue, especially an issue like this. There's been a few issues that you and I talked about that weren't bad, but hey, listen, what does this have to do with John? Like, we want the stories that delve into the deep psyche of John, and that's exactly what we were given. And I think that's why you and I are so gushing over this. We're gushing so much over this issue because this is exactly what we're about.
Yeah.
Give us that inside look. I want to crack open John Constantine's skull and get inside.
Get inside his head.
And that's what they did. They literally went in his head. I mean, the imagery of the heart at the end. Dude, the eyes had tears, dude.
The eyes had tears.
That's fucking beautiful, man.
It is.
I mean, what a gorgeous and sad translation of regret, guilt, in the form of an image. That's proper, or let me backtrack, that's a proper crafted representation of John's feelings made tangible.
And then on top of that, making kind of like this narrative, this story about how pride is the thing that will trump guilt. Because like the moment Old Man Constantine sees the heart and he tells it to go fuck off, what does the heart do? It goes fucks off.
Dude, and honestly, when he said that, that made me even more interested now in the villain.
Yeah. Because
at first I'm like, okay, so this guy's just a piece of shit. Great. Congratulations. Give us a villain with some teeth as well. Let us learn about this. And when he did that, when he told the heart to fuck off, I was like, all right, there we go. Now we got ourselves an interesting villain and an interesting hero.
Yeah. Because like, as I alluded to earlier, it was at that moment I was like, this is the villain. Don't get me wrong. Old Man Constantine is the protagonist to John.
Antagonist.
Or antagonist to John. But the idea that it's John's pride, and there's nothing wrong with having pride. There's nothing wrong with it. But the fact that that pride can be manifested to...
Literally manifested.
Yeah. Manifested to something that you could say is evil, but you still understand it. Like,
well, that's why he's his own worst enemy, because he's looking at a possibility of himself. Like, is this my future? Is this what I'm destined to become? A soulless shitheel that's playing God so that at the end of his life he can be happy?
Yeah.
And when you think about it, I don't think this version of John is the good version, I should say, our protagonist John. I don't think he is a bad person, but when you kind of put them side by side, we've seen John make similar decisions as Old Man Constantine is doing. Yes, his heart might be in the right place. His decisions might not be as selfish, but I mean, you can see where, hey, you know what? I can go this way, or I can go this way.
Yeah. And you'd think they would stop there, dude. You'd think that Spurrier would say, okay, that's enough layers that we add.
No, it's not.
But then in the next part, it's like all of a sudden it's alluded that Old Man Constantine basically is telling John that he has to do this. He has to, essentially, it's almost like yourself telling you have to commit suicide. I know that's a dark tone.
Yeah, so get this, Dave. So he's got to cut ties from all your friends, because we all know how it ends. It always ends the same way.
Exactly.
You're going to get them killed. That's going to add more guilt to your heart. I don't want that. And you're going to have to kill yourself.
You're going to have to kill yourself. And dude, I love I would like to know if it was Spurrier's idea to do this, but before this, you have all these hyper really nice colors happening, but then when you get to this, like, really the what I feel is the pinnacle of the argument between Old Man Constantine and Constantine himself, all of a sudden he's all dark in shadows, and it starts getting darker and darker, and he basically the moment that he looks at John and says, "Don't sound so shocked. You've always known we both have. The only sod nasty enough to do you in is you." And then Constantine's like telling him, "No, I won't. Not for you. Not for anyone. I'm not going to do that." And like, Old Man Constantine's like just telling him, "Hey, that's the carrot.
Yeah.
You're going to have to take it, whether you like it or not." And then he leaves him by saying, "Don't make me use the stick." I'm like going,
Jesus.
as a person who has gone through that type of thought processes in the past, that's what it's like.
Yeah.
I'm like going, holy shit, I finally get to see a writer like Spurrier in comics actually touch on something like this and actually give it that proper gravitas that I think that a story like this would have.
No, you're right, Dave. It just gets more and more layered because it's not just regret or guilt we're dealing with. Look also, to add to your statement, look at what Spurrier has done with this entire situation. So now we understand the way Constantine views himself.
Yes.
He is his own worst enemy. The perception he has of himself to where he creates such a visceral construct, the ugliness of the heart with tears that follows him wherever he goes. The heart, the monster, before he knew what it was, is killing all the other Constantines in the bar. And not just killing them, maiming them, brutally murdering them. Chopping arms, limbs are flying all over the bar. This is a man that hates himself, like a deep-seated hatred. And the way the issue ends, you know, as you had mentioned, John coming to the conclusion that he has to seclude himself and be lonely. I mean, and then, Dave, having to admit to yourself that Old Man Constantine, whatever his true motives may be, if we don't know completely yet, but having to admit that he's correct. You can't argue.
No, you can't.
How does Constantine argue that he's not right? Like, yes, you're right. People that get close to me die. And the only way to prevent that from happening is if I seclude myself.
If you seclude yourself.
And if he had somehow forgot that maybe perhaps John felt like he could do things differently, he gave him those dreams. Or he gave John's friends
those
nightmares of what could happen if they don't leave John.
And it really brings back the whole conversation that has always been in the back of my head throughout this entire series. In the very beginning, when he's talking with Chaz, and Chaz tells him, "Dude, you're a cancer to everybody."
Now it makes sense why we even saw Chaz.
Yeah, and Chaz is like saying, "Look what happened to me because of you."
Yeah,
and he blames Constantine, and that's how your story begins. And then you get to this, and then it makes sense that Constantine has not been paying attention to that.
Because
lately.
I had thought that Chaz was in it just so they can pacify some of the Constantine fans that have come to expect Chaz being a part of the series. But now, from a story perspective, it makes a lot more sense that you essentially bookend your story with elements that create consistency, starting with Chaz.
And it started with Chaz. It went to the two people who, I forgot their names right now, but there were two characters that they brought back, and they said
his two allies that
they were like going, no, John.
One has run to the United States, the other died. Yeah.
And they're like going, no, you stay away from us. You're fine where you are. And it's like, wow, you get to this point, and it's like, it gets super dark at the end, because it's kind of like, just like what you said, Old Man Constantine's right. We as readers, we as fans know John's screwed at this point. How the hell is he going to get out of this? And I give a lot of praise to Spurrier's way of writing and forming this story. I don't feel like doom and gloom at the end of this. When I finished reading this for about like the fourth time, I was like going, how the fuck is John going to get out of this? Because I know in my brain as a Constantine fan, I know he's going to get out. But the question becomes is how?
I think it's going to end, Dave, sad.
You think we're going for a sad ending?
Yeah.
It'd be.
Dave, I want it to end sad.
That was what I was going to bring up.
Especially with an ending. Let it end with his suicide.
You end it with John Constantine
I'm a
killing
dark
himself?
motherfucker. I say let's end it in the most depressing of ways.
Especially, here's the thing. This is
He kills himself not for himself, but to save everyone else.
Save everyone else. Because...
Think about it. He condemns himself to a life in hell, right?
Yeah.
He probably loses his soul. I'm sure he'll go to hell, right?
He's got to.
Yeah,
At this point. All the deals
and he does all of that to save people. That's the way to go. It would be very poetic.
And it'd be a really not just poetic, but also it would be the biggest, if you think about it, it'd be the biggest flip off to Old Man Constantine, because
he should just go tarnish the soul.
Yeah, Old Man Constantine's going to go to hell with him.
Yeah.
So.
It'll be interesting to see how it all works out. Dave, let's go to a very quick break, and then when we get back, we'll jump into the rest of our discussion, okay?
Got it.
Right back. All right, be sure to check out John Constantine, Hellblazer Volume 1, Marks of Woe, on sale now. One of DC's most iconic characters, John Constantine Hellblazer, is back the way you remember him, and now a part of the Sandman universe in this brand new series. The series collects the Sandman universe presents Hellblazer #1 and John Constantine Hellblazer 1 through 5. Be sure to check out the podcast description of this episode for the details. It helps us stay on the air when you click through our affiliate links and purchase through us. Thank you. All right, welcome back, everyone, to the House of Mystery. You're listening to us via Rain Man Digital. Remember, you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and Spotify. Just search House of Mystery. Also, please consider subscribing to our Patreon page. If you head over to patreon.com/RainManDigital, you can pledge $1 to $10 a month to help us stay on the air. We do offer additional content throughout the month. From various different podcast hosts from our network, including ourselves. So patreon.com/RainManDigital. Pledge. Give us that $1. Even $1 will help, right, Dave?
Oh, absolutely. And who can't afford $1?
Me. All right, Dave. So let's finish up this discussion here. I know seems a bit like a shorter show, but than we normally would, and it feels kind of unfair when you're dealing with such a rich story, but it's so concise and so out there that we were able to get through it in just 30 minutes because it's plotted out so carefully.
This feels like this was the game plan for Spurrier since day one.
Yeah.
This is part of the story. I feel like there's been separate stories that have been thought about, like different paths that Spurrier was thinking of taking John throughout the series. But this was story A. This was the main story. This is about Constantine. This is the better version of you. That's what started the game from issue 1.
Yeah. Well, and I hope, because I know we had a few people kind of flabbergasted with, and I don't want to be negative and I don't want to bash people, but hey, we critique, we review things. That's just how it is. But for those people who are kind of miffed or didn't understand why we had rated Hellblazer Rise and Fall so low compared to Cy Spurrier's run, well, this issue here is the perfect example.
Yeah.
Is the perfect way to justify our thoughts on Hellblazer Rise and Fall when you compare them side by side. You have Tom Taylor's Hellblazer Rise and Fall #1 that meanders and then finally makes a statement on guilt and is done in the most ham-fisted way.
Exactly.
Someone's bringing back my guilt to haunt me. Okay, so we're dealing with a guilt story. Thank you for telling us. Whereas you compare that to issue 10 here, where it's all done through allegory. Stated through dreams. The use of imagery conveys the thought.
Yeah.
Smart gimmick writing helps vocalize what needs to be vocalized so that you're creating a more coherent statement on John Constantine's perspectives or the way he views himself or the struggle he is going through. That's the difference between making an issue about guilt the right way versus just saying it and being done with it.
Yeah.
Hey, this issue's about guilt. Well, how do you know? Well, because he said it once.
Exactly.
This is why I am completely just baffled that Spurrier's run for Hellblazer is being canceled. We have exceptional writing. And no one's talking about it.
No one's talking about it. It feels like we're the only ones talking about it.
Yeah, no one's talking about it. But go on Twitter, type in hashtag Hellblazer, and Tom Taylor's Rise and Fall just takes up the entire conversation with people blowing it, saying it's one of the best stories of all time. And I just don't understand that. And how do you have two series running side by side that are essentially about the exact same thing? Guilt. Why would you do that?
I honestly feel that basically when we covered Rise and Fall, I basically made the statement that this is written for
Yes,
a mainstream audience.
and I understand that you have two different audiences.
You have two different audiences right now. And I think that audiences like us, like the old school Constantine fans, the ones that love Vertigo, that love, the
Good writing. Yeah, the ones that like good writing. Yeah.
I like to say classic writing. Classical
Okay,
writing.
all right, I'll go with
classical
that.
writing.
That's a nice way of
when
saying
it comes
it.
to when
Yeah.
it comes to comics. It's a new game now. I've made allusions to it early in the show that I feel I've come to the conclusion this past week, especially after reading this and reading other comics, that a lot of the mainstream comics are not written for
Okay.
smart audiences.
Oh, David. Listen, intelligence has nothing to do with it.
How about enlightened audiences? There you go.
Okay.
Enlightened audiences.
All right.
Like the audiences that are expecting story narratives like from authors like Neil Gaiman.
Listen, this is no different than someone who prefers to watch things, say, on HBO and CBS. Like, there's a certain demo that loves those tired CSI shows.
Yes.
How many more episodes of CSI can you make? How many more spinoffs can you make of Law and Order? And then you have the crowd that likes Euphoria and Lovecraft Country. It's a different audience. And I don't think it has anything to do with intelligence. It just has to do with taste. And
I think that the taste for comic books nowadays
yeah,
is very laid back. They don't want.
it hasn't always been
nuanced.
that, though. I mean, comic books have always been
No, dude.
mainstream grabs. I mean,
I would say in the 80s and 80s and pre-90s, comic book writing was at its peak because you had
the
writers
90s? Really? You think of the 90s?
early.
Yeah. Okay, I'll give you
90s.
that. Yeah.
Not like the Image Comics years where it was everyone had muscles and and patches for miles and capes that go up to the sky.
Right.
I'm talking about like the times when we had Alan Moore, Neil Gaiman.
Right. Yeah.
We had Frank Miller when Frank Miller was good. Frank Miller was
Before
good.
he tried his hand at writing Superman, and it was the worst book of all time.
Book of all time. But like when you get earlier writers like that, even like say like Mark Waid, a really great example of this that I came to the realization, everyone praises, and I agree with this. It is one of the best written Marvel series the past couple of years, is Mark Waid's run on Daredevil.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't sell well. But it won awards for miles. It won amazing awards and everything. And the two series that Mark Waid has touched that people have stated, this is written for like our audience, is Hawkeye and Daredevil, but they didn't sell well.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I understand. I do. I get why things happen like this. I understand the selling of mainstream. Let's just call it media for the sake of argument here, and to simplify this conversation and wrap it up. But yeah, I understand this the success of mainstream media opposed to, you know, what's the word I'm looking for, Dave?
It's hard. It's really hard because that's why I paused for the longest time and trying to figure out the proper
material
way.
that has more substance. It's the same arguments as the dawn of time. We said this during our Hellblazer Rise and Fall discussion, so I get it, but it doesn't change the feelings I have when it comes to being just so exasperated and frustrated that people aren't reading this. And I don't know what happened, because I'll go to the comic book shop now and there are about 15 copies just sitting on the shelf. Whereas when it first came out, good luck finding one. Now there's 15, 20 copies, and not just of Hellblazer, all of the Sandman universe. There's like 30 copies of Lucifer. No wonder it got canceled completely.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, House of Whispers, tons of them. Books of Magic, tons of them. I don't know what happened, because when they first got started, they were fucking selling. It's almost as if the stories were written poorly, but they're not. People start reading them. It's like, fuck it. I'm not going to finish. So I don't know if this series isn't... I mean, we're dealing with the last 10 years. Let's look at the last 10 years, right?
Yes.
Again, mainstream. For the last 10 years or so, people have been more accustomed to the New 52 John Constantine. Then the Rebirth John Constantine. Then the Justice League Dark Constantine. There's an expectation of over-the-top hero-like antics, saving the day, a true, let's just say, comic book representation of a hero. John Constantine doesn't always fit into that category. At least he shouldn't. So now we have a Hellblazer series ongoing that's more in line with how John Constantine originally was meant to be. But it's also been, 10 years since we had this?
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if the audiences were no longer accustomed to this type. Again, when I say audiences, I'm talking about the newer generation. 10 years is a long time. Let's say you have a 14-year-old that grew up reading the New 52, and now he's 22, 23 years old, and he picks up this. He's like, Jesus, this is a lot different. This is very dark and sinister as fuck, and requires a lot of reading.
And dude,
true reading, you have to read. I had to read this. It took me 40 minutes to read the first time, and I had to read it twice in order to completely understand what was going on.
And dude, to put it into perspective, we're talking 10 years, right? That would put it around the 2010s, where we actually talk about the Vertigo run of Constantine. You have to go back to the 1980s, 1990s.
Right.
That's more than 10 years. That's 20 plus years away.
Well, no, you had the Vertigo run up until the New 52.
That was the New 52.
That was 10 years ago, right?
About maybe
2012, 2011, yeah.
2011. Yeah.
That's when the New 52 started. So, and they canceled the Vertigo John Constantine title shortly after. So, I don't think it has anything to do with intelligence or intellect or anything like that. I feel like it has more to do with a taste. Audience taste. And they succeeded in bringing John Constantine into the mainstream back in 2012, and they've managed to make him a verifiable hit. But at the same time, seems like it might be a little tough now to sell this type of story to people, because people who grew up reading that New 52 John don't know this John Constantine. Get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I could be completely talking out of my ass, but
I don't think so. I mean,
we're just kind of riffing right now, but I'm trying to understand what happened. And people can say coronavirus, but listen, people are
longer.
I'm talking about the lack of sales in.
Oh, lack of sales, yes.
I mean, listen, if you love something, excuse me, I'm dying over here. If you love something, you're gonna go back into those stores and get them. There's tons of ways to order comic books nowadays, so I don't think the pandemic had anything to do with
The sales.
the sales, because there are tons of other comic books that are selling. Look at Deceased.
Yeah.
Look at Hellblazer Rise and Fall. Look at everything Snyder's doing.
Those still sell.
Yeah, it has, and the pandemic didn't affect it. So hopefully within time, people who understand comic books from the inside out, perhaps comic book historians, will look back and give us a definitive answer. Because as of right now, all we can do is speculate, right?
Yeah, because it would be interesting is actually seeing when this run of Constantine ends with the next 2 issues. When it ends, it'd be interesting to actually see where this story arc fits in the list of Hellblazer storylines.
You mean how history is going to look back at it?
How history is going to look back at it.
Yeah.
Because,
well, dude, it's 10 issues.
Really good.
10 issues. I don't think it's going to resonate, man.
I don't think it doesn't resonate now.
No, I don't think. I think hopefully people will find this, but how often do people remember just 10 issues?
That is a good point.
Is that true or no? I'm asking you. Do people remember short runs?
Not nowadays.
Not all the right.
Not nowadays.
But again, that can change. It's all based on appetite. So who knows, Dave? This is all conjecture at this point. Let's go ahead and wrap up the show. You want to give me your final thoughts?
My final thoughts on this issue is just to show the difference between this and a Rise and Fall. I gave Rise and Fall a 72. I'm giving this a 92 because of that's how much better this one is. All the beats and all the points that they've made in one issue is more substantial than what we got in the first issue of Rise and Fall.
And 40 plus issues, dude. 40 plus issues. And yet didn't even come close to what Spurrier gave us in 22.
In 22. In 22 pages. That's insane. It is so insane. And that's why I looked back at this at my grading and I compared it to Rise and Fall. And I told myself, if I were to put these 2 issues, just the 2 issues back to back and say which one and how far their scores are, Rise and Fall scored 72, which is like a average comic to me. This one sticks so much to me, it gets 20 more points.
Yeah.
The art is fantastic.
Oh, dude, it's beautiful
art. Oh my God, I wish we could have a full series of John Constantine with just Bergara doing the art.
Come on.
Doing the art. Because, dude, all the issues that he's covered have been just spot on. And it has that old Vertigo type of feel that I for me as a fan, I feel has been missing. And
shut up, Dave.
And him working with Spurrier, I think that's they've been a fantastic 1-2 punch.
I'm definitely a Bergara fan now, like for sure.
Yeah,
I will actively seek out his other work now.
Yeah, he's one of the big highlights I highlighted in my notes for this one, and why it gets the extra points.
Did you give it a score, right? 90
Yep,
what?
92.
92. All right, so I will give this a 94%. Now, you know what? I'm going to give it a 96. That's right, Dave.
I wouldn't blame you.
I feel like it's near perfect. Near perfect. The way Spurrier writes these stories, he's a skilled motherfucker. I mean, that's all I can say. 22 pages, Dave. I can't get over it.
What he was able to pull off in 22 compared to a lot of others.
It's a skill set, Dave. I know people may say, well, that's what you're supposed to know how to do as a comic book writer. Yes, you're right.
You're right. Why don't we see this more?
If it was up to me, I'd give Spurrier all the work. But like, all right, Star Wars, Superman, Batman.
Dude, can you imagine?
Give him some Marvel. Give him Blade. Give him Doctor Strange.
Can you imagine?
Give him Ghost Rider, goddammit.
What Spurrier could do to a character like Superman?
Fuck, dude. Now I want to see it.
You would absolutely. I feel that Spurrier would actually do a story that would be reminiscent to All-Star Superman.
To be honest with you, though, I would like to see his take on like Ghost Rider or Blade.
Ghost Rider would be freaking cool.
Yeah. So I'm super, super excited to see what's up around the corner, what's coming at us with these last 2 issues. I'm also, it's a little bittersweet, I should say, because it's so close to the end.
We're coming to an end.
Yes. So this does bring us to an end. I want to thank everyone for listening. Thank you, David.
Thank you.